I see you got a nice little jug over there. Is that 64 ounces?
Yeah, 32.
All right, we are good. We have all the cams.
Objects
We're
are
ready to
smaller
get
than they
going.
appear.
32 ounces. Pretty good. All right. Well, Cheese, do you want to kick it off? What's popping?
Awesome. Okay, guys. So welcome to the Two Dads podcast live. Have a short segment here as part of the fundraiser stream. A quick shout out again to speedrun.com for being our partner, and of course GSA. So yeah, today we have Darbian, the man, the legend of the most well known for the 2D Mario games mostly, but again, he has so many games on his list. How are you doing today, Bob?
Doing fine. Hope the
Awesome.
event's going well.
It's going great. Better than I expected actually so far. So we're on a good road.
We're on the run of our life here, to say
Right.
the least.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get right into it. First question I want to ask is, again, according to your Twitch bio, you have a huge lineup of games you speedrun. I want to ask, what makes you want to speedrun all these games? Do you just like the diversity? You like, or do fans give you ideas and you kind of want to try different stuff because of that? Or
No, it's not so much ideas that people give me. It's more, I guess video games have always been kind of a big part of my life since my childhood.
mm-hmm.
Like especially retro gaming, which I guess was modern gaming back then. But I was fortunate enough to not have my parents throw away all my old gaming stuff or sell it or give it away, like has happened to a lot of people. But once I got into school, I kind of had a great desire to go back to those games that I played as a kid and then like learn how they work, with an adult mind now and be able to really break them open. So it's a lot of nostalgia for me for the games that I've played, just games I played a lot as a kid that now I can go back and play in a completely different way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the whole adult aspect. Playing games as a child compared to now, it's like you play the games now and you see so much more. It's like, oh my gosh, all these things you can do in the game. It's obviously a lot easier to get around, but it's a good feeling to play now and be like, wow, I could do all this stuff now that I didn't know how to do as a child.
Well, it's also like, I mean, if you have a favorite game, you can only play it so much before it offers pretty much zero challenge or really anything unexpected. But then
as well,
you add in the goal of completing it as fast as possible, and suddenly it becomes an infinite challenge.
Yeah.
And all these obscure details about the game become incredibly important to understand. So it's
exactly
really, really fun.
So have you spent a lot of time like studying the games that you play? Like down to the
I guess it depends if there's anything to study, because a lot of them didn't really have a lot of prior speedruns done for them or a lot of community interest. There's something like Super Mario Bros. There's a whole bunch you can read up on getting into that, whereas something like Duke Nukem 64 maybe not so much. So it really depends on the game that I'm playing, but I do try to take advantage of whatever resources may be out there, so I'm not just blindly trying to find the best way to speedrun it on my own. It's not really
right
what I enjoy about speedrunning. I don't like coming up with my own routes. I don't like doing all the, I guess, grunt work.
Yeah.
I can relate to that a lot. Okay, with that said, which games would you say you spend the most time on and pay most attention to?
I mean, if you look at strictly hours, I'm sure it's Super Mario Bros. I mean, that was the very first game that I successfully learned to speedrun. So time-wise, it just has the advantage over everything else. And then, I just kind of pushed myself to my limits in that particular game. And so much has changed over time. So like, what was optimal in 2013 is like, you could pretty much do in a day, a couple of hours today. So it's just really crazy how it's like that game. When people talk about the most optimized speed game, that's always like on the list somewhere. So it's just really fascinating how even a game that was considered solved back then has had like 2 seconds come off of it since then.
And that's a huge deal for a game like Super Mario Bros. 2 seconds, because in a game like that, it's about the frames. Every single frame matters.
Yeah, it's just it's really, it's kind of weird how that was the game that resonated with me, because I really don't like to play games where I have to care about every single frame.
Right.
But due to the way that game is programmed with the frame rules and stuff, you don't actually have to play perfectly to get a perfect time. So it kind of works out well.
Okay.
So a question I have, since you do a lot of 2D Mario, does it carry over at all? Like, can you pick up another one faster because you've already played a lot of other 2D Mario games, or are they all pretty different in their own way?
I feel like even in a more general sense, just being good at one 2D platformer makes you good at any 2D platformer, makes you more prepared to be good at any 2D platformer, because it's really just moving, running, and jumping, maybe shooting.
Yeah.
I think those skills aren't necessarily important just to Mario games.
Interesting.
But I mean, the Mario games just have a nice polish with level design and complex mechanics, and just great music to listen to, which I think is important.
Yeah.
If you're going to be listening to it a whole bunch. So, and they're just not horribly broken, so the runs kind of resemble an intended playthrough for the most part, save for a few tricks. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Once I learned one game, it became easier to learn any other platform going forward, because then I could kind of build my own process for how I go through that.
Okay.
And I also mentioned like the tools that are available now compared to when I got into speedrunning. It's just so much more abundant. There's all these save states. There's all these flashcards that are easily obtainable. Practice ROMs. It's just that stuff. I really think that the tools alone have been responsible for lowering the times in the top games by so much.
Yeah, definitely.
No, totally agreed. Yeah. Okay, another side note. I see on your bio, there's Super Mario Bros. 2, and then there's Super Mario Lost Levels.
Yeah.
Are those related at all, or?
I mean, they're related in that they both say Super Mario Bros. 2 when you start them up, but and they're both Nintendo games, but Super Mario Bros. 2 Lost Levels was intended to be the sequel to Super Mario Bros. Worldwide.
Right.
But it was only released that way in Japan, and due to a number of factors, including the difficulty, it never made its way to the US as Mario 2, and instead another Japanese game, Doki Doki Panic, was reskinned to be a Mario game. But I still count them all. Like, people argue whether it's really a Mario game or not, but I mean, the company that makes Mario says it's a Mario game. It's not a big deal to me. I consider it a Mario game, but just because it is a Mario game, that's what it's released as. But I mean, it's a platform, you run and jump. It's a little weird how you pick up enemies, but again, it's not. It doesn't take a lot of getting used to, I guess. Although I will say it's one of the more unforgiving Mario games.
How come?
Just the continue system. I mean, Mario 1 lets you always continue from the world that you died on as many times as you want. Lost Levels was the same way, but Super Mario Bros. 2, it's kind of rough to just beat casually, and then you have 2 continues, and it's fully game over. So
wow,
it's just a little rougher at the beginning, but once you start speedrunning it, and game overs aren't a threat anymore. It's just like any other game.
Okay. So Dragster, give me a little insight on Dragster, because you mentioned that you don't necessarily like the idea of every frame, mattering, but then Dragster is like, it's the epitome of that,
Well, I mean, it really isn't every frame perfect. I think every input has some window of frames, so it's like it varies. I think there are a couple of frame perfect inputs in it, but some you have like 5 or 8 frames to do. But I mean, Dragster was.
It's kind of like a side project, kind of fun thing.
Yeah, it was just like it kind of swept the speedrunning community, and as I said, I still have all my old gaming stuff from my childhood, and that includes the Atari that I had. So I never actually did a speedrun on Atari, because those games really aren't my kind of thing. Like, I don't have a lot of nostalgia for them, and they're kind of basic, like score-based games. But when this Dragster thing came out, and I saw all Omni Gamer's analysis, and he basically put a spreadsheet out saying, do these inputs in these frame windows, and you'll achieve this time that's never been done before. So I thought, I'll pay the $3 for the game and give it a try.
Right.
But it was just a really fun, like you said, side project. But it's just one of those things that kind of blew up in the community overnight almost, and
Right.
then it it reached its conclusion, and even today's people still play it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of talk about speedrunning. What brought you to the scene? What was your first encounter with the speedrunning community?
So, I mean, I guess like a lot of people, the GDQs are what brought me in. It was specifically AGDQ 2013. That was the first one I got to see, and that was actually my first time on Twitch. I didn't even know what Twitch was. I just
so you saw it live. It wasn't like YouTube.
Yeah, it was live. And if I could point to one run during that event that got me into it, it would have been Runner Guy's 100% Ocarina of Time run. I had seen speedrun videos on YouTube before, like Ocarina of Time beaten in 90 minutes or something. But at least the videos I saw were only the gameplay. So I just watched this gameplay that I didn't know if it was a task, if it was original version of the game, if it was being played with a normal controller by a human or what. It was just the gameplay, and I didn't understand everything that was going on in it. But when I saw the AGDQ stream and saw like a real human holding a real controller, playing on a real console and explaining everything that went on, that's when I kind of got that missing context and realized that this is a really awesome hobby. Like there's a lot of people who put a lot of effort into figuring out all these different strategies in these old games, and I was just glued to the screen that entire week. It was just game after game just blew me away what you could do in it. So that was my entry into speedrunning.
That's the pretty much the same thing with me and my brother. My brother actually found out about it before I did, and he actually used to speedrun before I did. And it was just all day, dude. We were just so into it because our childhood was the same thing, was Mario, Zelda, and yeah.
When was that when were you first exposed, Cheese, to it?
Well, the first time I found out about speedrunning was 2012.
Okay.
And then 2013, my brother started speedrunning. He speedrun quite a lot of games. And he stopped. And then I started right after he stopped in 2014. And I've talked about this before. My goal was to start speedrunning Ocarina of Time first, because that was my all-time favorite game. And then I saw Mario and I thought, this looks a lot easier to get into. And I already had it on VC. So when I started, it just, I didn't want to stop. It was great. Right.
So what was your first game? Super Mario Bros?
No, actually it wasn't. That was the first game that I streamed. That was the first game I successfully learned to speedrun, but I'd actually tried to learn 2 games before that. And they were 2 very forgettable NES games. One was called Air Fortress and one was called Big Nose the Caveman. Just because I had them with me. They were, like, as I said, childhood games I had nostalgia for that I was considered super challenging. So I thought I would start with one of those to kind of break in. But as I said, those turned out to be even too challenging for me to speedrun at the time. And then Speedruns Live was hosting, I don't know if any of you remember it, but they had an event called Seasons, which I think they recently brought back. And season 1 was in 2013.
Oh yeah, okay.
And they basically chose like 10 categories from 10 relatively popular games, and those games would get like a leaderboard reset, and then you had 2 months to race it as much as you wanted, and the top 3 people on the leaderboard would get a prize. So I looked at the list, and Super Mario Bros was the only one I felt comfortable about learning, comfortable I could learn. So that's really the only reason I picked that game up. It was just for that one kind of forgotten event at Speedruns Live.
Right.
And so that was that right after AGDQ? You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, or did you kind of sit back?
My first stream and race was it was like April 21st, 2013.
Oh, okay.
So about 4 months after. It took me some time to figure out how Twitch worked.
Yeah.
It took me some time to figure out how capture cards work, splitters, and get like an old CRT. And it was actually kind of funny. I was watching Twitch after AGDQ, like I followed some of the runners there, but I would join the chat through IRC instead of the web interface for some reason. And I didn't exactly understand how emotes work, because in IRC they don't render. So I'd watch these streams and wonder why everyone was talking about this person called Franker Z. Like I didn't understand who that was. Like I thought it was just some legend in the community, because he was referenced in every single chat I was in.
I was the same.
And it's like it wasn't until I finally pulled up the browser like weeks later that I actually saw the emote rendered and understood.
Neat.
Awesome. Okay, so I see a bunch of other games here, like someone's that I've never heard before. The World of Illusion, like quite a few Mickey Mouse games. Was that one of your childhood games that you really enjoyed, or?
Yeah, it was. As a kid, I would remember my parents taking me to like the local game rental place on a Friday or something, and I'd pick out a game, and I just had to go by the cover art back then. So a lot of games I just kind of chose at random, but I do remember playing some of like the Mickey platformers. It's specifically Magical Quest for Super Nintendo, which I thought it was an enjoyable game. It's not all that popular, I suppose, but that was one I wanted to go back to and revisit, which I did. And then there were some for the Genesis, which I also ran, and I was actually able to run all three of those at various GDQ events over time. My first one was World of Illusion. That was my very first GDQ run. But I also held the record in each one at some point, but now I don't currently hold any of those just because that's speedrunning.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was about to say, like, all these games you speedrun, plus being one of the in the top runners list of one of the most famous speedruns. I was gonna ask, like, have you ever reached a point, in your speedrunning career where it's like it's too much, I need a break? Have you ever taken big breaks?
Yeah, I frequently, especially in the last couple of years, I frequently burned myself out, and I also suffer from anxiety to a degree. So sometimes I just have to back off. Like I recently, at the beginning of this year, I took like 2 months off, and
I remember that.
And I hate it. Like anytime you don't see me streaming on a somewhat regular basis, you can assume that I wish I was, but I just can't.
No, I totally understand that. I need a break. I mean, everyone does. There are some streamers, dude. I give big props to them. I don't know how to do it. Streaming every day for years, and I need rest, dude. That's hard.
I feel like it. I mean, I've never like done much casual gaming on my stream, but I feel like it might be easier to do that as opposed to like trying to constantly improve the best performance you've ever given at whatever game you're playing. Like,
definitely.
It requires a lot of focus and dedication. And then, I work full time, so this is really just something I do for a few hours.
You work full time as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a full-time job, which I had before Twitch. So.
Okay, where do you work?
I'm a software engineer, so I just do computer programming.
This guy, dude, has it all. A full games list at software engineer. That's crazy. That's inspiring.
I mean, one thing about so the full games list, I mean, anybody can run any number of games.
Well, yeah.
And obviously the less obscure a game is, the easier it is to get the more obscure a game is, the easier it is to get a record in it. So I don't like when people talk about number of records and stuff, it really doesn't mean that much to me. When they like talk about how many I have, I tell them it's just a number. And if anybody really wanted to put in the time, like if the whole community decided they were going to take all my records one day, I bet in like 24 hours I could have been wiped out. Like, not as impressive as people make them out to be. Like not all records are equal, obviously.
No, of course not. Yeah.
But like one issue with running so many games is that people always want you to go back to play whatever game you were playing when they first found you. It's like, man, I'd love to see you play this again or this again, or I never got to see you play this, but you should go back to it. So it's like they want me to play everything that I've played and defend every record I've lost, which is just not it's not feasible. It's like I hopped in those games and did what I wanted to do and kind of left, and maybe I'll come back someday.
Of course.
I just got to play what I want to play, because if I try to do anything else, the burnout's that much worse. Like I can't force myself to play something if I'm not feeling it.
Feel that. Well, we are on GSA's fundraiser marathon. GSA, they're relatively new, trying to be a competitive, go-to competitive thing for the speedrunning community, planning on starting a league system for a couple of games starting in 2019. What are your thoughts on esports and speedrunning?
It's really cool to see how all this has kind of blown up in the last couple of years. Like all these big competitions I've seen, pulling a ton of viewers and bringing like a ton of new interest into these games. Like I think like the randomizer and stuff, those tournaments around those have become immensely popular. So I'm all for it. Like it's like an extension of speedrunning, and I feel like it's unavoidable that would happen. Like so, it's like if people are happy doing it, then I have no issue with it.
If it was to reach when it reaches that stage, do you think you'd be interested in joining the leagues and the seasons, etc.?
I'm really not sure. Like I've never been one to really. I'm not all that competitive, like in terms of races and stuff. Like I like to challenge myself when I play and do what I'm capable of, but I don't really like all the build up to like one specific run to have one chance to compete with somebody to
Right.
get a good run, because that's really not what speedrunning is to me. Like speedrunning is trying over and over and trying to like perfect things as you go and slowly improving and just hoping you hit that one good run, as opposed to just getting one shot and trying to do as well as you can, which is kind of why I get really nervous and stuff before GDQ runs, because it's not really the way that I play.
I guess considering you have a full-time job and like you said, you see that speedrunning as something you could do a few hours a day of your your pastime games, your passion. I could definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and to be honest, even if I had more time, I'm not sure that I would speedrun any more than I do, because after a few hours, I'm kind of done anyway.
Right.
It's like I can only take so much at a time. And even as of late, I've had issues with my thumbs being really aggravated, and I've seen some doctors about that and had some treatments. But who knew that holding buttons down for 4+ hours at a time is actually for them. But so like I'm even right now, like I'm wearing these devices. It's called an Oval 8, and it helps keep my thumb from fully bending when I'm not playing. Just like I was diagnosed with like trigger finger in my thumb.
Wow.
So I've tried to take what measures I can so that I can keep speedrunning in general.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
That was part of the break that I was on.
I'm not gonna lie. SGQ 2017, when you personally taught me SMB1, like a few of the tricks in the game, I played for like an hour maybe, and my hands were destroyed. I don't know how you guys use that controller. That is hard.
That's from you probably just not being used to holding that controller, but
right.
I mean, everybody grips the controller differently with a different amount of strength. I press really hard because like I can distinctly remember like record pace Mario 1 runs where like input got dropped for a frame because I wasn't pressing the button hard enough, which I just kind of naturally train myself to press it really hard all the time after things like that have happened, and it's a horrible habit, but it's just kind of self-reinforcing when you're trying to be so precise with what you're doing, and like inputs get dropped, you just want to press even harder. So I'm not sure it's ever a problem that I'll fully overcome, but I'll just hope that I'm physically able to keep doing this for a while longer.
That's the question. I mean, like Simply said, he's in the same situation. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's hard too. I don't know if you've had to take a break because of it, but I've had to take a break, and it could be tough because like while you're playing, you're really into it because it becomes your daily routine and it's habit, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna play and it's gonna be so much fun. But after going months without playing, like you kind of lose that flame that you had for the game, and then it's hard to even be motivated to do like stretches and stuff. It's
I mean, there were definitely red flags. Like I can remember once, like the game I was playing at the time where it kind of flared up was Mario 3, and I distinctly remember at the start of one stream when I was still warming up, like there was a level that I wasn't getting, and I specifically said even out loud, like my hands hurt too much to keep practicing this, so I'm going to move on. And that should have been a flag to like stop, but I tried to play through it, and then I paid the price by having to take 2 months off and not really feeling much better.
Dang.
There were moments like that for me too. In my case, it's kind of weird though, because I use a Hori mini pad and it's a very small controller. Almost everybody I know who uses Hori complains about hand pains and stuff and it being awkward, but I actually have experienced lots of hand pain with every other controller but the Hori. It's kind of weird. Actually, when I played OT and used GameCube controller, I got serious hand issues for a while. But
I thought didn't you switch back to a standard N64 controller at some point, or
for a few weeks, and then I realized it wasn't my thing. Right. Also, that hurt a lot too. So I was like, nah, I got to go back to Hori.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, with the amount of time it takes, like if somebody's starting out and they want to get to like the top level in these games now, the amount of time it takes to practice and like the precision of the tricks that they have to do, it's like, I feel like it's inevitable that this will just become worse and worse until, you know, like some new controller, like a super ergonomic controller is made or something.
Right, that's good enough and has the right notches, etc. Depending on what game you play, it's complicated.
Right.
Indeed.
Okay, well, I mean, we are coming close to time, but this is great. It was a short segment, but we got, I think, exactly what we wanted to ask.
Can I get one question in?
Just of course, yeah.
So I have in my possession, before, like Nintendo used to sell like accessories for their older consoles on their website, and they still do today. But I remember buying 2 brand new N64 controllers from their store, like maybe 10 years ago about.
Wow.
And I still have them, and I was wondering like what you think would be worthy of using a brand new unused controller on for N64. It's like I feel like nothing I can do would justify breaking one of those in, since they're so rare now.
Is it still in box and never been opened?
They actually didn't come in a box from their store. They're in a bag, but they've been sealed and unused.
Okay, if it's not in the original box, it would be worth less, but it being brand new and sealed.
Oh, I'm not talking about like selling. I'm talking about like what activity you think would be worthy of using them for. Like,
oh shoot! I mean, if you're not speedrunning N64 games or anything, then I'm not really sure.
I'm not good enough at any N64 games.
Right.
But,
to be honest, not really much. I don't think.
I thought you were gonna say Mario 64. My first.
I mean Mario 64, of course, but I don't know if he wants to play that game or to speedrun that game. So I don't think you're planning on it.
Maybe when you beat my 1-star time.
I did it on purpose for you to use the controllers. All right. Anything you guys want to add, or?
No, I'm good. That was solid. I think we covered a lot of good topics. Nice short little talk.
Awesome. I want to run through a bit about the prize giveaways we have. Once again, I would like to give a big shout out to Beast Coast esports team for sponsoring us with their merch to give away in our stream. Once again, there's the information and the commands in chat, but $5 donation enters you to win a copy of Celeste. $10 you get a Beast Coast bag. $15 you would get a sweatshirt. No, it's a sweater. It's a zipped up sweater.
Zip up hoodie.
And the $20 would enter you to get the official Beast Coast esports jersey with the sponsors, etc. And the $25 is the ultimate prize, the N64 bundle with it. It's an N64, SM64 cartridge, and an N64 controller, all signed by yours truly.
Big Daddy.
And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for watching. And thank you, Darbian, so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Good luck with the rest of the event.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Keep you posted on everything. See you later. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Peace.